Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Have you been researching deep into the back recesses of your prepper pantry and your food storage stockpile, and you're finding some outdated cans of food? What can you do with outdated cans of food? Are they still okay to use? How do we know? Generally, the food is going to be okay, but what we want to do is look over the cans and make sure nothing is bulging, nothing is leaking, nothing looks off, there's nothing greasy on the label. Then you can go ahead and open the can. Anything that spurts, you need to throw it away. Go ahead and look. Does it look like the food that it was supposed to be? Does it smell okay? Does anything look off or suspicious? If it does, throw it away. But if it looks like regular and you don't see any reason to be suspicious, go ahead and give it a little taste. If it still tastes okay, it's probably perfectly safe to use. I've used so many cans of food that were past the date and I've never had a problem. The only time I didn't use it was when something looked off and I threw it away. And you always want to err on the side of caution. When in doubt, throw it out. If you're suspicious at all, don't use it. But most of the time your food's going to be fine. You've already paid for it, so go ahead and use it. Something to know, you used to be able to donate expired food to a food bank, but that's not possible anymore. They won't take food that's past the date. So if food that you don't want to eat anymore for some reason and it's not past the date, go ahead and donate it if you don't plan to use it. But you know, you've already paid for the food, you may as well make a meal plan with it. Now when you're looking at your food, the thing to remember is the date on the can is a best by, use by, sell by date. It's a guarantee that until that date the food is going to be perfectly fine and top quality. It's after that date that things tend to disintegrate or lose their flavor or their texture turns weird. And so it isn't as palatable, but a lot of times will still be perfectly fine to eat. We can't know just by looking at the date on the end of the can, and so if you're wondering, go ahead, be a scientist, open it up and check it out. And likely you can still make dinner out of that can of food. Also, when you discover that you have some cans that are nearly expired or past the expiration date, set them out and make a meal plan of you're going to make it a priority to use up those cans as soon as possible. If you find 5 expired cans, go ahead and plan 5 different meals with that food that you can make for dinner this week. That will help you to use, rotate, and replace the food that you have stored and stockpiled. If you find that you bought too many of a certain food, pay attention to that so you don't have as many in your stockpile in the future. If it's something you just don't care to eat anymore, then make a note of that so you don't replace it. Figure out what can I buy instead of that. I want to have ample amount of food, but I don't want to have food that nobody wants to eat. And don't ever in the first place buy food that you don't intend to eat, nobody likes, and you don't know what to do with it. That simply doesn't make sense. If you could reach for a can of food you don't like or a can of food that you do like when you're in the store, why wouldn't you just choose something you tend to eat and that you like? And part of the problem for like myself is that my sweetheart passed away, and so I still have foods that he enjoyed eating because of course we want to have food that everyone likes in the family. But now that he's gone, there are foods that are languishing in my pantry that I don't necessarily want to eat, but it still seems like, well, it's past the date, I can't donate it, and there's nothing wrong with it, so I'm still going ahead and trying to be creative and disguise or supplement or make something unusual out of those foods so that I don't end up wasting any of that food. Something that I'm a firm believer in, if the food is not fit for you to eat, I don't feed it to animals. If it might make me sick, why would I want to risk making my animals sick? So I dispose of food that I don't think is safe to eat. So let's go ahead. I'll show you some of the foods that I found in my pantry, and I have 5 ideas of how I'm going to use up these expired foods. And remember, it doesn't mean they're rotten just because the date has gone by. Let's check it out. First, I have a can of peaches that's in juice. And so if you can buy fruit in juice, get that rather than in syrup. One of my recommendations is if you buy cans of fruit, use it before the date, because I have had fruit that has leaked all over the place. And I almost hate to buy it, but it's so good and it's easy to open in the pantry. But don't count on fruit lasting longer. How am I going to use up my can of peaches? I'm going to make oatmeal and then put servings of peaches into the hot oatmeal. And you just chop up the fruit a little bit, and it is very tasty, and it's a delicious way to get fruit into your system and also to use up some of that canned fruit. Next, I have a can of beef pot roast soup. I could eat it as soup, or I can make up a package of instant mashed potatoes and pour the soup and serve it over the mashed potatoes, which would be a great idea because the potatoes also need to be rotated because they're out of date as well. I still get sad when I find chili and tamales, but they make a great little tamale casserole. Look at this picture. I think we look pretty young there. What do you think? Sorry, we shouldn't get choked up over canned food. Next, I have a can of pinto beans that's expired, and I thought I could make a great little casserole with it. I have a can of chicken, and I also have Mexican rice. That's a Knorr Mexican rice side. Now what you want to do is make up the rice, stir in the beans, add the chicken, and then you have a nice little, like a casserole type, one skillet meal, or roll it up into a tortilla and make a burrito. One of the things I discovered recently is when you open a can of food, make sure you remove the lid completely before you try to drain anything. Because I had a can of chicken that after I drained it and dumped it into a pot of food I was making, then I turned over the lid to rinse it out, and it was all black and gross inside. So then I had to throw away all of the food that I was making and start over. So we don't want to waste all of our food, but always make sure that you're really looking inside the can. Don't do what I did, which was just drain it and then lift the lid. I also have an out-of-date can of artichokes. Artichokes are great. You can drain them, add them into a salad, cut them up small, put them on a sandwich even. But you can also make them into a nice pot of pasta. Boil some pasta, top it with some olive oil and some herbs, stir in your artichokes, and you're going to have a nice, delicious meal. It's also delicious if you have some fresh Parmesan cheese to stir in too. That makes it very delicious as well. So these are 5 meal ideas that I'm going to prepare this week out of the foods that are expired and out of date in my pantry and need to be rotated. Then always have a plan B in case you do open one and something isn't quite right. Then you want to toss that food and then go to plan B and make something else for your meal. So let's go ahead and open this can of tamales because it's 4 years past the best by date. I find cans of meat usually last far longer than the date on them, but this is meat and other things, and yeah, it's just been languishing in the pantry. So let's go ahead and open this can of tamales and see what they look like, in case you've never opened tamales before, and see if they still are going to be good to eat. I have high hopes for this can of tamales. You can see everything on the can looks fine, except that date. So let's go ahead and open it. Nothing should spurt. That still looks good. Look at that sauce. That looks good. Nothing looks weird on the lid, which now I'm very suspicious now after that crazy can. This actually fits great in a loaf pan, so go ahead and spray it. Nothing sticks. And then we'll pour out the tamales. Then do you see how they all have a little paper wrapper around them? So you want to remove the paper wrappers. This part's messy. So roll up your sleeves. They look normal, they smell normal, and yeah, but it's sloppy. But you can see how you can just line them up in the pan. Now we have our out-of-date chili, and you can see that all looks fine too. So let's go ahead and open the chili. That all looks normal, so we're going to spoon it over the tamales. See how you just spread it over? It's so simple. Now I'm going to top it with some Colby Jack cheese. Any kind of shredded cheese that you like is good over this. And if you like chopped onion, you can sprinkle it with that as well. Preheated 325-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes until it's all heated through and bubbly. And dinner is ready. And you rotated those outdated cans. See what's bubbly? It's all done. Doesn't that look good? It was so simple. And that is tamale casserole. Let it cool like you would, say, lasagna, and then you can serve it. So there you go, tamale casserole. It's so simple. So what should you do if you have expired canned food? Don't be afraid. Check it out, inspect it, and then use it. Make meals out of it. Don't waste it. But remember, always if you have anything is questionable, go ahead and throw it away. Let us know in the comments below what outdated food have you tried that turned out to be fine, and maybe give us some recipe ideas of what to do with a random can that we might find in our prepper pantry and our long-term food storage stockpile. I hope you'll like my video, share it with someone else you think might enjoy it. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.